Hungarian Folk Tales. The Frog, the Mouse and the Sausage. A long time ago, far, far away, there lived a little frog. And the frog met a mouse and a sausage. All three began to talk, and they decided to become best friends for life. The mouse did all the cleaning, the frog did all the shopping, and the sausage cooked all the food. And the three friends lived like this for a month and a day. The sausage cooked such delicious food that they were always left licking their lips. And no matter how much they ate, it was never enough because the food was so delicious. When the month was over, the sausage said, "We should really take turns, so who is going to cook the food instead of me?" "Why not the frog?" they said. So then they made the frog their cook. The frog tried this kind of dish, and that kind of dish, and that kind of dish, and this kind of dish, but he could never cook anything the others liked to eat. He carried on cooking for a couple of days, but then they asked him to stop. "You are a very bad cook, Frog," they told him. The frog felt very ashamed. "Well then, croak, who will do the cooking now?" So the sausage said, "We'll make it the mouse's job." So the mouse became the cook. And it cooked for a couple of days, but it cooked so badly that it asked the sausage, "Why don't you cook instead of us?" "Yes, croak, why don't you cook instead?" the frog asked. But the sausage could only say, "I had my turn of cooking, and if you don't want to cook, then we'll have to break this friendship up." But they begged and begged the sausage until it finally agreed to cook for a couple of days more. The frog thought it could learn to cook by watching the sausage. Well, when the soup was nearly done, the sausage pulled it aside, and when it thought nobody was looking, it jumped into the soup. "Aha! Croak. Now I know why the soup tastes so good. Because the sausage always jumps into it first. Now I know how to cook." Then the frog offered to cook for them again. "Now I will be the cook, Croak. I know how to cook." So the frog put a big pot of water on the stove and made a big fire to get it good and hot. And it cooked it and cooked it. When it thought that the contents of the pot had cooked enough, the frog didn't wait for it to cool, but hopped right into the boiling hot soup. Well, the water was so terribly hot that it made the poor frog's skin all slimy and wrinkled. and that is where toads come from. Then the frog had to stop cooking because the hot soup had scalded it so. The mouse and the sausage laughed at the foolish frog when it told them the story, and they decided not to be friends any longer. So they all went their separate ways, and they all lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Poor Man's 9 Hens and 1 Cockerel. Once upon a time, there lived a poor man and his wife. And they had more children than there are holes in a sieve. The poor man only possessed 2 small oxen, and he went ploughing with them in the forest every day. He was ploughing there one day when he heard a kind of crying. A big brown bear was wrestling with a tiny rabbit. The poor man laughed heartily when he saw the peculiar sight, but this made the bear very angry indeed. "You'll see, poor man, I shall eat you up, oxen, plough and all." This frightened the poor man, who said, "Oh bear, please don't eat me up, for I have a great number of children, and if I don't plough this field, there won't be any wheat, and then what will the little children eat? Please wait until the end of the day, when my ploughing will be done, and you can come here and eat me up, oxen, plough and all." "Very well," the bear said, and it walked off into the forest. So the poor man went on ploughing, but he felt so sad that he did not know what to do with his sorrow. And as he stood feeling sad, a fox appeared. "Hey, poor man, why are you so sad?" "How could I not be?" And he told the fox about his promise to the bear. "Oh, there's no need to be sad. What will you give me if I help you? Do you have chickens in your yard at home?" "As a matter of fact, we do. My wife keeps 9 hens and a cockerel." "Well, if you give them all to me, I shall tell you what to do. I'll happily give them to you, and you can come and collect them later today. Poor man, I shall return this evening and hide behind a big bush. And then, when the big brown bear comes, I will..." Do you think that will work? It will. Poor man, I have come to eat you up, oxen, plough and all. Very well, eat me. What's that noise, poor man? I don't know. Hunters might be coming with guns to shoot you. Oh, hide me somewhere. I'm so frightened. Here's a sack. Hide in here. So the bear hopped into the sack without a second word, and the poor man tied the sack tight. Then the fox came out from behind the big bush. And he began to feel the sack. What's in the sack, poor man? Nothing but a big noggin of firewood. I don't believe it. But that's what's inside. Well, if it is a noggin as you say, chop it with your axe. So then the poor man hit the sack hard with his axe, and the big brown bear was killed in an instant. Well then, poor man, you promised to give me 9 hens and a cockerel, and I shall go to collect them later tonight. So the poor man went home, unharnessed his oxen, went into the house, ate his supper, and went to his bed for the night. All of a sudden, he heard a knocking on the door. Who's there? 'Tis I, the fox. I've come to collect my 9 hens and a cockerel. Very well. Wait until I get up and put my trousers on. But the poor man had no intention of dressing, and instead he said to his children, "Bark, children, bark." What was that? We forgot to lock our door before we went to bed, and all the dogs came in from the yard to sleep under our bed. Now they can smell a fox, and they want to eat you up. Oh, hold them, poor man, let me run away. Bark louder. You see, Fox, I have learned something from you after all, said the poor man, and he turned to the wall and fell fast asleep. And he and his wife and all their children lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Rich Man's 3 Sons. Once upon a time, there lived a rich man. One day, one of the rich man's farms burned to the ground, and nothing was left but a pile of smoking embers. The rich man had made his fortune as a moneylender, and one of his unhappy borrowers had burned his home down. The rich man felt terribly sad, and not even the priest could comfort him, as he was sure the man would eventually go to hell because of the cruel way he had made money all his life. That may well be true, the rich man thought. But if someone should burn down my other farm, how will my 3 sons survive? The rich man thought and thought about this until he decided to find all 3 a job. He made the eldest son a soldier because he was very bright. He made the middle son a blacksmith's apprentice. And then he spoke to the youngest of his 3 sons and said, "I think you will make a fine barber, son of mine." The youngest son had no objections, and all three agreed to do their father's bidding, as anything was better than working the land. The eldest liked the idea of marching around with a silver sword by his side, while the other two were happy that they would not have to hoe or mow now that they had proper trades. The years passed by, and the rich man became old, although he had never been a young man, and he spent all his time thinking how he could one day avoid hell's fiery furnace that had been promised to him by the priest. But the rich man's three sons did not have a care in the world. His son the soldier danced his days away, while his son the blacksmith and the barber spent all their days making merry. Then the day came when the sons received a letter saying that they should all three return home at once because their father's days were numbered, and he wanted to see his sons. So all three sons journeyed home and thought they would soon inherit a fortune from their rich father. When they arrived, the rich man asked his son the soldier, "Well, my son, what manner of soldier have you become?" "Well, my father, the emperor has no finer soldier than I, and I wield a silver sword like no other. The other day, it began to rain while we were on parade, and all the other soldiers got wet, but not I, because I drew my sword and span it around so swiftly above my head that I remained dry." The rich man nodded. "I'm glad, my son, that you have become such a fine soldier, and I have no need to worry about your fortune." Then he asked the middle son, "And you, my son, how do you fare as a blacksmith?" "Well, my father, there's no finer blacksmith in this land, or any other beyond its borders. Only yesterday, a coach passed by the smithy, drawn by 4 grey horses. The lord driving the coach said that all 4 horses needed reshoeing, but he had no time to stop. My master stood and scratched his head, but while he stood there, I swiftly shoed all 4 horses, and the coach did not have to stop for a single second." The rich man also noted his middle son's words. "You are indeed a master of your trade, my son, and I have no need to worry about your fortune. And you, my youngest son, are you also a master of your trade? You ask me if I'm a master barber, father? Well, nothing proves it better than the fact that I shaved a rabbit clean while it was running yesterday, and I did not cut its soft skin once." The rich man also noted his youngest son's words, and then spoke to all 3. "I see, my sons, that you all have the skill to make your own fortunes, and you have no need of mine. And so now I can use all of my money to pay myself out of hell's fiery furnace." Then the rich man called the priest, gave him all his money, and told him to give it to the poor. So the rich man's 3 sons were given nothing for their pains and ran away, never to return. Hungarian Folk Tales. The King's Bread. The king in this tale was tired of eating chicken and noodles and cake and milk and bread and other sweet treats every day, and so he issued an order that he should be served an extraordinary dish that he had never eaten before, but that it should be delicious. Well, the king's cook thought, I will do my very best. And the cook carried one spectacular dish after the last to the king's dining table. The cook tried all he could imagine: eggs with honey, pork with sugar, fish with cream, and walnuts baked in milk. But all to no avail, as the king was not impressed and pushed each away with a look of disgust. No sooner had the cook placed the 13th dish before the king when he roared, "Enough! If you fail to bring me a dish I have never tasted, I shall have your head cut off." So the poor cook returned to the kitchen feeling sad. He thought and thought, but he simply could not think of anything clever to cook for the king. He could almost feel the executioner's axe on the back of his neck. With no idea of what to cook, he took a loaf of bread and ran away from the royal palace. When time came for supper the following day, the king sat at his table, as he always did, but no dish was served before him. This had never happened in the palace before, and the king summoned for the cook to be brought before him, bound in chains. But where was the royal cook? They searched the palace high and low, but he was nowhere there. So then the king's carver said to the king, "Your Majesty, I have to tell you that the cook has run away." The king was furious. No supper, and now no cook. Was he the only man in the land to sit before a bare table when it was time to eat? So the king ordered his guards to saddle their horses, and he led them out of the palace on horseback, furious and famished. They set out after the cook, soon found his trail, and rode until they came to a great forest. Here they searched low and high until they sighted him atop a tree, and the king shouted up, "Come down, you wretch, or I shall shoot." But the cook decided not to move and pretended to be dead, held aloft by the tree's strong branches. So the king called his men to chop the tree down. But the guards worked as slowly as they could, because they all liked the cook very much indeed, and they felt sad for his sorry fate. The king would surely have the cook's head cut off, and they would be sorry to see him go, because he had the habit of giving them delicious tidbits that the king ignored. And the roast pork and chicken always made an excellent change to their daily ration of bread. The king soon saw that the guards were slacking and the tree would never be chopped down. Then the king's cook became so frightened by all the chopping that he dropped the loaf of bread he carried and it fell to the foot of the tree. The king saw the loaf and wondered what on earth it could be. "It is a loaf of bread, sire, and not for a king, but a poor man's food." The king broke a little off and tasted it. "Oh, I've never eaten such delicious food since I was a baby in my mother's arms." "You rogue, you never told me that you could cook food as delicious as this loaf of bread. Come down and I shall pardon you for all your sins." The king's cook now knew that he was safe, and so he climbed down the tree and stood before his sovereign. "Cook, I order you that from now on, whatever you serve on my royal table must be accompanied by bread." Hungarian Folk Tales. The Bear and the Cat. Many, many years ago, in a land far, far away, there lived a bear. And one day, the bear met a cat and said, "Let us work together, cat, and build a house." So the two of them worked together and they built a house in the forest. When the autumn came, the leaves began to fall, and the bear said, "The winter will soon be here. Let us work together, cat, and collect some food." So the two of them bought a bucket, went deep into the forest, and filled the bucket with wild honey. Then they got a second bucket and filled it with fat, and carried the buckets up to the attic. The winter that came was a very bleak one indeed, with plenty of wind, lots of snow, and very cold days. So the bear lay down to go to sleep, while the cat watched over the fire and sat comfy in the warmth. But then the cat slowly became hungry and wondered how it could get out of the house so it could climb up into the attic to eat from the buckets of honey and fat. "Where are you going, cat? You will never believe me, but a mouse just came past and invited me to a baptism. The mouse has just had a baby and says it wants me to be the baby's godfather." "Very well, then you had better go," said the bear. So then the cat sneaked up to the attic and ate a quarter of the honey and a quarter of the fat and sneaked back down again. "Oh, you're home from the baptism. What's the little one's name?" "A quarter." "How about that? I've never heard of a name like that." Time went by and the cat got hungry again. "Hey, cat, where are you going?" "Well, you will never believe me, but another little mouse came by and invited me to another baptism."
Very well, then you had better go. You're home again soon?
That's right, said the cat.
And what's the little one's name?
A half. After a few days, the cat got hungry again and quietly opened the door.
Where are you going, cat?
You will never believe me, but I've been invited to another baptism. Another baby mouse was born, and I'm to be its godfather.
Very well, then you had better go. So what's the little one's name?
Nothing.
Oh my, that's the strangest name of all.
When the spring came at last, the bear woke from its winter sleep, thin and hungry as it had not eaten since the autumn. But everything is fine because we have plenty of honey and fat in the attic. Cat, please fetch some and we'll make delicious pancakes with honey.
Go up to the attic, cat, and fetch the 2 buckets down.
Oh, but I'm so dizzy. So very, very dizzy. And we all know that cats don't get dizzy, don't we? But the cat was pretending.
Very well, I'll go and get it myself,
said the bear. So the bear went up to the attic and found both buckets empty. I'm going to teach that bad cat a lesson. Cat, you ate everything up, and that is why you said a quarter, a half, and nothing. The cat denied the whole thing and said to the bear, let's make a test. We'll both lie in the sun for a while, and whoever ate the honey and the fat will sweat it out, and then we'll know. So they lay down in the sun, and the cat ran up to the attic and scraped what was left of the fat and the honey from the buckets and smeared it on the bear's fur. Then the bear woke up and looked at its sticky fur and said,
Oh dear, I must have eaten it all. But when did I do it?
When the cat saw the bear, it couldn't stop laughing. And it laughed, and it laughed, and it laughed, and it ran off into the forest. And the poor foolish bear lived unhappily ever after.